We have 5 cases on the agenda for today, and I think we have the same participants as far as the appraiser and the appellant. So we are going to start with case number 1, RPC 1600306A, 2025 North Queen Street. Mr. Harmon, I think are you presenting the case?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes.
All right, members of the board, Annetta, good morning. So for this property to start, I just want to go through and review the basis for kind of why we're here, specifically what assessments are supposed to capture, and what the purpose of the appeal process is. Article 10, Section 2 of the Virginia Constitution states that all assessments of real estate shall be at their fair market value. Virginia law, as stated repeatedly by the Supreme Court of Virginia, defines fair market value as the price property will bring when offered for sale by a seller who desires but is not obliged to sell and is bought by a buyer under no necessity of purchasing. Essentially, that means an arm's length transaction for all intents and purposes. So we know from this that assessments are by law required to be at fair market value, which again is the price the property will bring in an arm's length transaction. How do we apply this when the subject property has not traded recently? Well, Virginia statute addresses this, stating that unless there is Virginia law directly addressing an issue of assessments, then generally accepted appraisal practices, procedures, rules, and standards as prescribed by nationally recognized professional appraisal organizations such as the IAAO should be applied. Now, further, while the assessment is given the presumption of correctness, this presumption is overcome by law upon a showing of manifest error or total disregard of controlling evidence. The burden is on the taxpayer to show the property is assessed at more than fair market value or that the assessment is not uniform in its application. What this means for this case, where the lone issue on appeal is the cap rate, is that we are reviewing the county's cap rate based on generally accepted appraisal practice and controlling evidence. Based on our analysis of all available market data, the county has ignored controlling evidence in violation of Virginia law, which has resulted in the assessment being greater than fair market value. This does not mean that the assessment's cap rate can only be changed in cases of distress. Rather, it means that we have to objectively, impartially review all of the evidence before the board and determine if the county's assumption is supported by actual market data. Applying the law to the appeal at hand, specifically to review the cap rate on the assessment by using generally accepted appraisal practice, we will show that the county's cap rate is not supported by the evidence. Now, we have provided the Wilkes Artist Board Book as an addendum to our appeal here today. I do hope that all the board members were provided a copy. We provided both digital and physical copies of this. If you only received the digital copy, those hard copies are available in Dre's office. They're in the same building that you all are at. Please, if you'd prefer a hard copy, pick one up today on your way out. I will be referencing this board book frequently throughout our cases as we go forward. And if you're like me, I typically find having a hard copy in front of me is easier to reference. Now, turning to page 38 of this board book, we see how the Appraisal Institute's guidance on the derivation of cap rates. As a note, the Appraisal Institute is a nationally recognized professional appraisal organization, and their publications and guidance are in accordance with Virginia law. The Appraisal Institute lists the first source of cap rates as sales comps. Then it lists the final source as surveys. Looking at these in turn, this is what the county has provided that they relied on to develop their cap rates for this property. Taking these in turn, the Appraisal Institute states that sales comps must be adjusted to account for differences between the sale comp and the subject property. Applying this to the 2024 sales in the county, we see that the assessment's cap rate is too low. Examples of 2024 sales comps include 2121 Westmoreland, which sold at a loaded cap rate of 6.833%. Even before making any adjustments to this sale comp to account for the differences between that property and the subject, we see that the sale comp cap rate is greater than what the assessment for the subject property has assumed. Now, making those adjustments, the sale comp was a 2010 build that is metro accessible. The subject property was originally built in 1953 and is not metro accessible. Making appropriate adjustments to that sale comp to provide for those differences, we see that the county's cap rate is much too low. Another sale comp is 955 Columbus. 955 Columbus is metro accessible. It was built at a similar time, but it was renovated recently. It was renovated in 2011. That property sold at $225,000 per unit. So a metro accessible property renovated in 2011, originally built around the same time as the subject, sold last year at $225,000 per unit. The current assessment on the subject property, an older non-metro accessible property, is $250,000 a unit. The appeal value is $225,000 per unit. So this count, looking at it just on a per unit basis, that property is better situated, closer to a metro, been renovated more recently, yet it sold for $25,000 less per unit than the current assessment on the subject property. The sale comp at 955 Columbus was a cap rate of 6.343% loaded. Adding a metro adjustment and an effective age adjustment brings the cap rate up to our claim value on this property. Next, looking at the Appraisal Institute's 6 cap rate source investor surveys, you can see on page 24 of the Wilkes Artist Board Book that all 3 investor surveys the county states they relied on for cap rate support actually state a higher cap rate is warranted for the subject property. The first, the PwC Institutional Survey. Next, the RERC Tier 1 survey. Finally, the CBRE Stabilized Class A survey all show cap rates for the subject property should be higher than what the county has assumed. Looking further at these 3 surveys, we see that RERC and CBRE provide data for properties that are not 5-star Class A institutional grade properties, such as the subject. RERC has 3 different tiers. CBRE has a value add survey. Both of those state that cap rate should be even higher. So while the institutional grade Class A stabilized says cap rate should be higher, once you go further and get the appropriate portion of those surveys, it supports a cap rate increase to an even greater extent. So in summary, the county's assessment employs a cap rate that ignores all controlling evidence. It is not supported by market sales, nor is it supported by market surveys. We are not here to determine if an increase in the cap rate is warranted due to distress. We are asking the board to evaluate the evidence available in the market to determine if the county's cap rate is actually supported by market data. For all the reasons I've spoke to, we believe the county's cap rate is not supported by the evidence and must be increased to bring the assessment in line with Virginia law. Now, as a side note, on the county's sales comps that they list, they do mention a sale that sold as low as an unloaded 4%. Now, in the county's sales chart, they have properties that are not comparable to the subject. The subject has 202 units. The county lists sales comps that are 8 units, 9 units, 10 units. Those are not comparable. I imagine that's where that low cap rate came from on the sales comp. We are not aware of any truly comparable sales comps of this size with a cap rate that low. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Good morning, Ms. Shawsworth. It's your turn to go, please.
Yes, good morning, board. Good morning, Jordan. This is a garden-style apartment built in 1953 with the effective age of 1985. I did inspect this property in June 2023. There are a total of 202 residential units. The amenities include fitness room, on-site laundry facilities, outdoor resident lounge, sauna room, and package system. The appellants are contesting the cap rate. This property has demonstrated a consistent increase in the apartment income since at least 2021. The 2023 and 2024 were exceptionally good years for the subject, as the potential rent saw between 7 and 8% increases in the apartment income, and the decline in vacancies and concessions, and between 7 and 10% increases in effective gross income. Looking down at the operating expenses, there were some large swings among maintenance and repairs and sub-services. The 40% decrease in 2024 maintenance and services is due to an elevated figure reported in 2023. As the board can see, back in 2023, these expenses jumped by almost 50%. The 763,000 expenses reported in 2023 are unusually high when looking at the historical data. In other reporting years, the typical range was between rounded for 450,000 to 515,000. Upon request, the appellants provided itemized expenses for 2024 for all the miscellaneous categories. Thank you for that. It's much appreciated. The appellants and our department both agreed on excluding $60,854 for the appliances and $515,000 for the equipment. So we are both on the same page here. Our cap rates. Again, they are supported by third quarter 2024 commercial real estate investment publications. We included the list of PwC, CBRE, and RERC. We have attached the list to the list of these publications. Also, the 2024 multifamily sales that we used that occurred in 2024 within the county produced a range of unloaded cap rates from 4% to 5.8%. The PwC alone, the third quarter, produced the range of the cap rates. This is for Mid-Atlantic, not national, Mid-Atlantic, and the cap rates range from 5% to 6.5%. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board for appellant or the appraiser? Ms. Dooley? No questions. All right, we'll go to wrap-ups. Ms. Charlesworth, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. So we are looking at the property that has been consistently showing an increase in rents and decrease in vacancies and concessions. Our tested NOI increased by less than 2%, which was very conservative, as the board can see in our test column. This is a well-performing asset, and we asked the board to confirm the 2025 assessment of $50,237,400. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harmon, you want to take a minute to wrap up, please?
Yes, thank you. So we're not contesting the NOI. We're applying Virginia law and using the actual 2024 reported NOI. Sorry, can I start over my minute?
Yes, please.
So again, we're not contesting income. We're not contesting expenses. We're applying Virginia law to the actual reported 2024 NOI of the property. The issue is the cap rate. Now, the county, please dive into this page 20 of the appeal. They provide their support. Keep in mind, they've listed the county's loaded cap rates and compared it to unloaded survey cap rates and unloaded sale cap rates. That is not an apples to apples comparison. The county's rates that they have listed are 1.233% greater right off the bat than those comps that they've listed as support. Once you make that adjustment to the surveys and the sales, you see that PwC has a range at the low end of 6.233 going up to 7.733. Essentially, the county's valued this property in 1953 built as one of the best properties in the Mid-Atlantic region. We have a sale comp, 955 Columbus, better situated than this property, sold for $225,000 last year. Current assessment on this property is $250,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Okay, it's on the board now. Where do we stand with this? Any suggested changes or?
It's just another cap rate argument. I get it. I understand what Mr. Harmon's saying. However, we can't just make one change to one property and be here the rest of the year making changes individually to each property. So while the mass appraisal practice probably is not perfect, I mean, what is perfect? I know the county does the best they can. I know he said he wasn't contesting the NOI, but I certainly appreciate when the appellate comes in with the same numbers that were reported and still caps them out. So, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I just capped out column E with the county's current cap rate came out with a slight reduction. But NOI is up 22% year over year. So the property did do well. So just curious to hear what you guys have to say as well.
So you're saying column E?
Column E, the county was like 40,000 higher.
Right.
In column B, so yeah, just giving them the benefit of the doubt and capping out column E is what I did, so.
Okay. Yeah, I did a couple of things that I pretty much did the same as you, and I'm sure the numbers that we came up are pretty similar. And I also looked at the expenses. I was trying to do an average for the past, 4 years, but I come up with a higher average. But, I'm not convinced to make any change based on that because, the pro forma and the income and expense statements are showing less than the average itself. So I'm actually okay with the current assessment, or if a change needs to be made, I would be fine to make any change like that to use the actual income. Ms. Dooley?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not necessarily a fan of just taking the current year operating INA and capping that out. Because we do have a stable and slightly increasing NOI over the history. So I think, just like Mr. Harmon said, he's really not contesting the NOI. And so I'm fine with the assessment as it is. I'm not convinced on the cap rate change. So like I said, I'm good with that.
Okay. Mr. Yates?
No, I'm fine with the operating numbers. I think it shows the property's performing well, vacancy, everything. I do hear Mr. Harmon though on the cap rate issue. And it causes me to pause in what they're looking at a little bit, but I don't see I don't see doing anything different than the county did. I still think cap rate's always going to be one of our challenges. I do hear what he says about him. He continues to make the same good point.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not really fully convinced that the county did, making a mistake on, or
Right.
error in all these cases.
I will say, I think the test column is a little bit high. The GPI seems a little bit ambitious. But that's just the test.
Okay. There's a motion to, I'll go ahead and move that we confirm the assessment at $50,237,400.
I'll second.
And a second by Ms. Dooley, all in favor? Aye. Against?
Aye.
Mr. Mendez? Okay, so the assessment is being confirmed at $50,237,400 by a vote of 3-1, with a no by Mr. Mendez. All right, we'll go to the second case, RPC 24003. The address 108 South Fort Hills Road. We can go ahead and start, Mr. Harmon, with the presentation.
Yes, thank you. So this is the Meyerton Apartments. And first, I just want to elaborate a little bit on the issue of uniformity and mass appraisal. So when a property is appealed, it's taken out of the realm of mass appraisal, and we're looking at the individual property. We're no longer in the mass appraisal system. You make a change to one property, it does not automatically carry over to every other property. We are looking at one individual property. With uniformity and fair market value, so Virginia Constitutional Article 10, Section 2 is the fair market value. And when those two run into conflict, as they do in this instance, where The county is going to make the case that we can't change cap rate because it's uniform across all of our mass appraisal. We're going to say, well, it results in a value that's greater than fair market value. What do we do then? The Supreme Court of Virginia has given us guidance on that. I'll quote from the board book again. Please pick up a copy if it's easier for you to have it as a hard copy. It's in the office there with you. In Board of Supervisor versus Donatelli and Klein, the Supreme Court said the preference for uniformity must stop short of assessment at greater than fair market value. Following up on that, in Smith versus City of Covington, the Supreme Court said that does not mean a property in any taxing jurisdiction may be assessed in excess of and without relation to its fair market value as required by the Constitution. So when mass appraisal applying a uniform cap rate runs into conflict with a final value that's greater than fair market value, which one wins out? It's clear from Supreme Court precedent that fair market value is the North Star. That is what our guiding light is. On this property, again, the issue is cap rate. The assessment imputes an unloaded cap rate of just 5.367. This property was built in 1940 and only has 106 units spread across 20 buildings. The property's location does not have access to a metro station either. So in addition to the market sales that I've noted in that last case and yesterday, I also want to go back to these investor surveys. The sales and surveys together prove that the county has ignored controlling evidence, and therefore the presumption of correctness afforded to assessment has been rebutted. All three investor surveys, PwC, RERC, and CBRE, that the county cites as support for their cap rates show a low end of cap rates of 5%. That's an unloaded cap rate, low end 5%. Current assessment on this property, 1940, not metro accessible, is 5.367. So just barely above that low end. And that low end is going to be for the best, newest buildings, best situated, most amenitized. So you're thinking J. Soul Apartments in Ballston. You're thinking the Central Place in Roslyn. All of these new fantastic views, all of the amenities, access to all the nightlife in the metros. That's where you get the 5%. This property is at 5.367. It's a 1940 build, not metro accessible, not institutional grade. It's spread across 20 buildings, 106 units, limited amenities. So going further into that low end of the survey, PwC is an institutional investor survey. Institutional investors, what is that? I've have an idea, but I did some more research and included an article in the board book that kind of gives a good definition of what an institutional investor is. An institutional investor, it includes sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, life insurance companies. These are investors that are looking for large investments. They have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that they need to place. They're looking for large investments. They're not looking for the Meyerton apartments to invest in. These investors are looking, again, for the best positioned properties that have little to no risk of losing, even if the upside is limited. They're looking for something that may pay slightly better than government bonds. Essentially, institutional investors are often required by their charters to invest a certain portion of their funds in real estate. Due to the nature of institutional investors, the real estate they target are large, newer buildings in central locations with, again, little risk. The subject property is not institutional grade. It's old. It was originally built in 1947. It's not well located. It's not in the central corridors of the county. It's not metro accessible. So the PwC institutional survey shows that the low end of cap rates for those institutional grade properties should be 5%. The subject property is only 36 basis points above that low end, despite the property not being institutional grade. Next, the county cites the RERC survey. This survey has 3 tiers, first, second, and third. The low end of the first tier is 5%. This property is not first tier. First tier properties are defined by that survey as properties that are new or newer quality and prime to good locations. That doesn't fit the bill for this property. Going on to the second tier, the definition is aging, former first tier properties in good to average locations. Again, doesn't really fit this building. So we go to the third tier. Third tier is older properties with functional inadequacies and or in marginal locations. That sounds about right for the subject property. The low end of this third tier cap rates is an unloaded 6%. When you load it with the tax rate and the replacement reserve rate, that becomes a 7.233%. The current assessment on the subject property uses a cap rate loaded of 6.6 below that 7.233 and an unloaded rate of 5.567. So if you go to the appropriate tier of that survey, you'll see that the county is below that. So they're applying an institutional grade cap rate to a non-institutional grade property. So we're out of mass appraisal. We're looking at this specific property. We need to apply the proper cap rate. Going next to the third survey, the CBRE survey, that survey has two different property types. It has Class A stabilized and it has value add. This property would not fall into the Class A stabilized as it's not Class A. It would fall into the other portion of that survey. The low end of that is an unloaded 5.5%, which is loaded at 6.733%. So all three of the surveys that the county cites as cap rate support actually support a higher cap rate. So please just turn to the county's cap rate data, load it with the tax rate, with the replacement reserve rate, and you'll find that the cap rate that's been applied to this property isn't supported by what the support the county's provided. Yeah, it's not saying what they say it's saying. All three of those show that the cap rate should be higher, especially when you make property-specific characteristics changes for property-specific characteristics, such as age, location, condition, and metro proximity. We've applied a cap rate of 7.28%, still conservative by the market standards based on conversations we've had with investors, but at a minimum, it should at least be, the cap rate should be increased to that rate to support the county's support surveys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shuttlesworth, can start with your 8 minutes.
Yes, thank you. So this is another garden style property. It was built in 1947. It has an effective age of 1980. The property had substantial renovation performed, which included new kitchen cabinets, new appliances, new bathroom vanities, and new floors. The amenities include fitness room, outdoor pool, grilling stations, and community room. This property also shows consistent year-over-year increase in the rental income and the effective gross income. In 2024, they were able to decrease the vacancy and concessions from over 7% to 4%. Moving down to the expenses, again, we see large variances in several categories. During 2024 BOE review, the appellant stated that OPEX reported for 2021 and 2022 were lower than what the property experiences typically. And so we looked at the 2023 and 2024 expenses, which are higher, on the higher end, and they are at 39%. They hover over 39% OPEX ratio. The NOI 2024, the 2024 NOI increased by 7%. As the board can see, our NOI used in 2025 valuation is below the NOI they reported in 2024. However, given the fact that our OPEX used in our 2025 valuation was lower than what they experienced at the property in 2024, I added the test column and I applied OPEX ratio of 40%, which is pretty consistent with the past 2 years of OPEX reported by the property. And our tested NOI was just roughly 300 above the 2024 NOI. So it was very, very modest increase we projected here. And our tested values still exceeded the 2025 assessment. Going back to the cap rates, just like in the last case, we did perform the cap rate study. We included several commercial real estate investment publications. We also considered the multifamily sales that happened in 2024 within the county. The range of unloaded cap rates these sales produced was from 4% to, I'm sorry, from 4% to 6%. I'm sorry, from 4% to 5.8%. We used the cap rate of 6.6%. And with that, I will be open for questions. Thank you. With that being said, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Nope. No questions. Okay, then we'll go to wrap-ups. Ms. Shelfors, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, thank you. Just to sum it up, we are looking at the property again that shows consistent increase in the apartment income and effective gross income. They were able to decrease their vacancies and concessions to 4%, which is below our stabilized vacancies and concessions of 6%. We also tested OPEX ratios of 40%, and our tested value was still above the 2025 assessment. And I asked the board to confirm the 2025 assessment of 14,929,700. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harmon, you want to take 1 minute to wrap up, please?
Yes, thank you. So again, on this case, we heard a lot of the county's whole case was about income and expenses and changes year over year and whatnot. We're not contesting income. We're not contesting expenses. We are applying Virginia law. We're using the actual reported 2024 NOI per Virginia statute. To that, you need to also apply a market cap rate. That's generally accepted appraisal practice. Market cap rates, as the derivation, we've included the textbook in our Wilkes Artist Word book. Please grab a copy if you're in the office and you would like a hard copy. It says to look at sales and surveys. Looking at sales and surveys, we find that the support is not there for the cap rate. This has a base cap rate of 5.367%. The low end of all 3 surveys the county has cited is 5%. Essentially, they're saying this property is only 36 basis points worse than a brand new property in Roslyn with all the latest amenities, the best location, those high rises that you see in Roslyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Okay, it's on the board now. Where do we stand? I'll go ahead and start. I think, this is the same. I agree with Mr. Harmon. The county is just presenting this based on the numbers, which they're not, in disagreement there. And I think we all agree the numbers are good. They show an NOI that is applicable and it's good, lower than what the reporting. As far as the cap rate, I'm not really convinced. And, even with the presentation of Mr. Harmon, I think it's within the range. I know they're making it sound like it's really one of the less desirable properties and the cap rate should be higher than that. But I think I'm okay with what the county did. Ms. Dooley?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mr. Penaranda. The other issue, I think the appellant brings up the point that this is, not metro accessible. It's not the, comparable to, Class A brand new building, but the rents also reflect that. It'd be different if the county was trying to take the rents from, an absolutely pristine 5 steps from the metro and compare it to this. I think the rents that are being reported on this reflect the location and the quality of the building. So I think that argument kind of comes off the table for me. So I'm okay with the assessment. I'm not convinced that the cap rate needs to be changed for this.
Okay, thank you. Any motion from? I'll go ahead and move also that we confirm this case. 14,929,700. We have a second. Mr. Mendez, all in favor? So it is a vote of 4-0. It's being confirmed at 14,929,700. All right, we'll go to the third case. Economic Unit 2300602A at South Lincoln Street. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your 8 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you. So this is a site plan. It's located at 3401 Columbia Pike. This is right at the intersection of Columbia Pike and Glebe Road. It's across the street from the Westmont Apartments. It's next to, there's a Burger King on the other side of it, just a couple of buildings down. The 2025 assessment for this site plan is an increase from the 2024 assessment of 7.4%. Now, nothing in the market has improved for site plans over the course of 2024 that would support an increase to site plans. In fact, all the data that we've seen, sales, we've seen construction costs continue to increase, we've seen supply increase, which limits the upside potential of new developments. All of the elements in the market say that site plans have decreased in value. In fact, the county did decrease their site plan valuations for market rate units that are within a half mile of a metro. They decreased that by 9.3% year over year. But this property's site plan, not metro accessible, increased by 7.4% year over year. Now, this increase appears to be because the county has changed their sales comparison approach to rely on just one sale. We reviewed what the county provided with the appeal. It wasn't provided before we received their case. They have one sale in there. It's a 2021 sale of the Hazel and Azure apartment land. Again, 4 years old as of the date of value. That appears to be what they based it on to get this 7.4% increase year over year. So while DREA reduced the rate for market rate apartment land that is metro accessible by 9.3% from last year to this year, they also increased the rate for this property that is not metro accessible. Looking at the county's land study that appears to have been, again, completed post-appeal date, we did not have a copy of this before the appeal date. Otherwise, we could have responded. We did request it at the beginning of the year. We see that of those 6 sales listed on their land study, 3 are from 2020. A 4th is from 2021. Additionally, looking at the very first sale listed, the Macy's in Ballston, that shows a sale date of October 2024 and a sale price per unit per the county of $62,700, or $2,300 less than what the subject property is valued at. The subject property is in no way as well situated as that Macy's property. That Macy's property is, I'm sure you're all familiar, adjacent to the Ballston Quarter, right in the heart of Ballston, metro accessible. It's a very good location. And yet, per the county's own analysis of an October 2024 sale, that property sold for less. That property should carry more weight as it is more recent to the date of value than a sale from 2021. Adjustments have to be made when you're conducting a sales comparison approach. That is by the book. That is generally accepted appraisal practice. I'm sure if you all have purchased a house and you got an appraisal, you'll see the appraisal come back and you'll have sale comps in the neighborhood. Adjustments will be made to those sale comps. That is required of appraisal practice when you're using a sales comparison method. You look at the comps and you say, how well situated is it? When did it sell? How have conditions changed? Is there a sloping backyard at this point? You make adjustments to it. So the Macy's, per the county's analysis, which, by the way, excludes any valuation on the 40,000 square foot of retail space at that property, just assigned $0 in value to that 40,000 square feet of retail to come up with that 62.7 value per unit, lower than the current assessment, makes no adjustments to get to this property that's not as well located. So looking at the county's land sale comps on page 11 of the county's case, we see a few issues. First, again, no adjustments made to the time frame, location, desirability, et cetera, as required by law. Second, the county assigns no value to the retail or commercial FAR at any of the properties, meaning the county assigns the total sale price to only the multifamily portion of the site plan, essentially saying that 40,000 square foot at the Macy's in Ballston that's leased to a premier grocer is worth $0. If that's the logic, let's apply that when we see retail FAR come up on land cases. Third, the majority of the county's sales are from 2020 and 2021. 4 of the 6 are from 2020 and 2021. That JAG sale in Roslyn, it's listed as a 2022 sale date. That was actually under contract and control by JAG as of June 2020. The market was much different there. So working from top to bottom, starting with the Macy's October 2024 sale, again, this property, there's $0 assigned to the 40,000 square foot of retail FAR. If we were to assign value at the county's commercial rate to that 40,000 square foot of retail, we see the Macy's sale was only at $55,000 per unit. So from that $55,000 per unit in one of the best locations in the county, sold just 2 months before the date of value, we can make adjustments downward to account for the less desirable location of the subject. As it stands, it's currently valued at $65,000. That's $10,000 more than the Macy's sale 2 months before the sale date, without any adjustments for less desirable location. Once you make those adjustments, it's going to go down below $50,000. That's going to put it in line with the second sale count. That's the Arlington Financial Center sale from 2023. This sale was also metro accessible. It sold for $47,000 per unit, not including any retail value. Again, there was just no consideration in the sales comps of the commercial or retail FAR present at these site plans. Once you consider the retail FAR at that property, it's $44,700 per unit for a site plan that's metro accessible. The current assessment on the subject property is $65,000. Who would pay $20,000 more, almost 50% premium for the subject property when they could have a metro accessible Ballston site plan? That just doesn't compute. That's why you have to make adjustments to sales comps to have a legally valid sales comparison method. Working on down the list, again, we see that the next 4 sales are all 2020 and 2021. In 2020 and 2021, interest rates were near zero. We were dealing with the COVID pandemic. The Fed slashed rates to, I believe, zero, if not right at. Capital was cheap. Rents were skyrocketing. If you recall, rents were going up in double digits year over year. That's not the case as of January 1, 2025. Interest rates are in the mid sixes. Rents are increasing 4 to 6% year over year. So it's a much different market. You need to make adjustments for that. We have reviewed professional appraisals on land sales, on multifamily land sales. They say the adjustment for interest rate changes in the market from mid-22 onward is 10% at least. They say that adjustments for location or cost of construction increasing since those sales in 2020 and 2021 is at least 5%. You also need to adjust for the increased supply, which reduces demand, reduces the profitability of future projects. Supply has increased 25% from pre-pandemic levels. Just as summary, this site plan increased year over year by 7.4%, while market rate units within half mile of metro decreased by 9.3%. It just doesn't line up with what we're seeing in the market. It doesn't comport. It results in an assessment valuing this property $20,000 more per unit than what recent sales have gone for in Ballston. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Ms. Shuttlesworth, you can start with your 8 minutes.
Yes, thank you. So the site plan was approved by the county board back in February 2023. It allows redevelopment of the existing structure to a 6-story mixed-use apartment with 250 units and approximately 5,000 square foot of retail. The appellants are contesting the land rates that were used in 2025 valuation, which was $65,000 per unit in this case. They stated that our department failed to support it by market data. They are proposing per unit rate of $54,420. Again, our department did conduct extensive land study. We included 6 sales. All these sales occurred within 5 years. There were not many land sales, so we picked the best that were available during our valuation. And non-metro rate per unit, the median non-metro rate per unit that we came up with was $65,432. And we valued this property at $65,000. I just wanted to note that one of our comps, which is Modera, yes, this property is located within close proximity to Metro, and it might be considered as superior to the subject. It offers several very attractive amenities. However, this is already reflected in the difference of the sales price per unit for Modera, which is over $100,000. And the value per unit we assigned in our valuation is $44,000, less than that when compared to Modera. With that being said, I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Mr. Mendez?
Yeah, for the county, what do you say to the appellant's, argument that the retail space is not included at all in the sales price and breakdown per unit? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so almost all, so except for Modera, to the best of my knowledge, all these properties do include some retail space. And retail space is considered a small portion. It's a small component in all these comparable sales we used. Just like in subjects case, we only have 5,000 square feet of retail, and we believe that there was no overwhelming difference in price per unit when included such small component in the total. And we did it, it would not be right for us to do it in only some cases, but we did it across the board. So we were consistent with this methodology.
So it is included in there. It's
Yes.
just not broken down separately from the
Yes.
retail, I'm sorry, from the apartments.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I'm not sure who the appraiser was yesterday. There was one site plan we had yesterday where the county did drop the price per unit. I believe it was from 65 to 55, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Oh, in what situation would that be appropriate? I don't remember what the context was yesterday for the county's revision. But
Yes.
do you remember that, or?
Yes, so that decrease resulted in correction of the factual error, because when this property was valued for 2025, we originally used Metro land rate. And then on review, we discovered that the property was located within 0.7 miles
Got
from
it.
the Metro, and we corrected it.
Okay, so it's proximity to Metro. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just one question for you, Ms. Shellsworth. So the increase per unit value from last year to this year, it was mainly based on sales across the county, or what was it based on?
Yes, so we determined the median land rate based on these 6 comparables. Yes, that was the part of our land study that we performed.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. All right, we'll go to wrap-ups. Ms. Shellsworth, you want to take 1 minute to wrap up if you have anything else to add?
Thank you so much. So again, our department conducted a very thorough land study. We picked the 6 sales that we believe were the best available sales, and our non-metro rate that we came up with. The median rate was $65,432. Therefore, the rate we used in this valuation is supported by the market data. And I asked the board to confirm the assessment, the 2025 assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harmon, you have a minute to wrap up. I think your microphone is off.
Yes, thank you. So this is the county's land study on page 11 of their case. You'll see that 65,432 median average, what have you, it's based on one sale, one 2021 sale of the Hazel and Azure. So it's 4 years old. It's one sale. We hear repeatedly, one sale does not an assessment make. Yet that's exactly what has happened in this case. This is an extensive land study we hear, but it's one sale that they're relying on for the increased rate this year. It ignores this 2024 sale 2 months before the date of value. And to go back to this does not include any retail FAR. So $20 million on that Macy's sale divided by 319 units gets you to 62,696, which is exactly what they've done. $0 assigned to that retail FAR of 40,000 square feet. That's significant. Once you include that, that rate comes down to $55,000 per unit for the Ballston Macy's sales, one of the premier site plans in the county. We're asking for that same value, $55,000, for not as good of a location. That's our case. The sales are too old to rely on and it's one sale does not an assessment make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm on the board now. Where do we go from here?
I just, I wish the county would separate the retail space from the comps. I understand it's a small portion, but if we're gonna, it's included in the site plan. If we're gonna tax the appellant on that, I think it would just be fair in comparing apples to apples to separate the two somehow and just take out the value in some way. And I mean, I hear a lot of the points that the appellant's making. I mean, there's some outlier sales there on the comps that are pretty high per unit. But it is a site plan, and our longstanding policy, well, since I've been here, has been to sort of stick to the site plan. But then again, year over year, the land value's up, and with rates being where they've been for the last couple of years, I don't know if the 2020 sales, 2022 sales, I guess 2021 are, necessarily comparable. It's a different market now. So I definitely hear what the appellant's saying in this case.
If you drop out those 2020 sales and then create what the average is, it's much higher.
Is it?
It's the one that's throwing it off. It's at 131.
Mm-hmm.
I do hear the appellant on this. The difference and the reason I would voted against the one the other day is it had some excessive, the metro requirement, the parking, things that I thought should have impacted what that cost value really was. I don't hear that.
I think most of the cases, they do consider both retail and apartment value. I've seen, as far as I recall, now in this case, the retail value went down from last year. The apartment value did go up by 5,000.
Well, I liked her answer, assuming it's correct, that they all have that smaller element of retail, therefore equalizing them out in that aspect when they apply that one number. That's what I heard as her answer.
Also, I think it is tough if it's a $20 million sales price. How do you figure out what portion of that is for the retail? I mean, it's just one price up front for everything.
It impacts
So,
FAR.
I mean, it's tough. I definitely hear what the appellant's saying, but I don't see where we can make an adjustment, and I don't think I would get any votes, enough votes. So,
Ms. Dooley?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's somewhat subjective, as Mr. Mendez just said, on that portion, but I just don't see the percentage decrease, $3 million, just don't see that it's justified. I'm not convinced of the appellant's argument. And just the stability of how site plans are assessed. I mean, this is keeping with uniformity and equalization.
I agree. Okay, do we have any motion to go on this case? Not having anything else, I'm going to make a motion to confirm this case also at 16,501,000 even.
I'll second.
Second will be Stooley, all in favor? 4-0, so it is being confirmed at 16,501,000 even. We'll go to the next case, our economic unit 3200605A at 2920. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your 8 minutes.
Yes, thank you. So this is the Jasper Columbia Pike. It is a 269 unit apartment building with 35,000 square feet of commercial space. 8,000 square feet of that commercial space is dedicated to a free clinic that pays $0 in rents. Now, the basis for this appeal is twofold. For the residential assessment, the cap rate assumed by the assessment is not reflective of market cap rates. Secondly, for the retail assessment, the county initially overstated the potential income and understated the operating expenses required to operate that property. The county has corrected on their review the retail assessment. So the issue today is the cap rate on the residential assessment. And the retail reduction that resulted from their review was offset by an increase in the residential on their review. So that's why the overall total value is about the same as it was prior to the review. So for this property, in addition to the market sales that I've discussed, 2121 Westmoreland sold at a close to a 7% cap rate in 2024. 955 South Columbus sold at a cap rate greater than the assessed value the assessment applies. We can also look at the surveys, again, support a higher cap rate. The county's at the low end of those surveys. They don't support that. We can also look at this property. It sold in 2023, so we have a barometer that we can go from. We can see how have cap rates changed from the date of sale to the date of value. So when this property was purchased, the PwC average cap rate for properties of this type in this location was 5.13% unloaded. So if you add the 1.233% to make it an apples to apples comparison with the county's loaded cap rates of 5.13 plus 1.233, you're at 6.36. That's when it sold in 2023. As of Q3 2024, that same PwC survey, that's the latest one that the county has. They don't, they cannot look at Q4, so we don't either. We look at Q3 2024. That survey, the same survey that is the one that I cited as the date of sale, reported cap rates had increased to 5.71% on average. That's a 58 basis point increase. This lines up with what we found when we compare the consensus of the three surveys the county states they relied on for their cap rate support for this property. Those three surveys show an increase over the county's cap rates of 68 basis points as warranted. So applying the appropriate market cap rate, again, we can track this from the date of sale to the date of value. A minimum of 58 basis point increase is what the market has experienced. We get, applying that increase to the residential cap rate, we get to a market cap rate loaded of 6.58%. Using the county's, if we apply that market cap rate as evidenced by the market surveys that the county states they relied on, and we use the county's revised NOI, adding this to the revised retail results in a total value of $99,579,400. We respectfully request the board reduce the assessment to this amount on the basis of imputing a market cap rate to the county's revised NOI and on the residential, and then accepting the county's revised retail. If you do that, you get to that value of $99,600,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shawsworth, you have your 8 minutes to go with.
Thank you. So this is a mixed-use apartment building with 269 residential units and 35,105 square feet of retail, out of which 8,000 square feet is occupied by Arlington Free Clinic. This lease expires in January 2029, and it does not generate any income. I inspected this property back in June 2023. The amenities offered include fitness room, outdoor pool, business center, residential lounge, and package system. The property last sold in June 2023 for $105 million, and it is currently assessed at $108,320,000. The appellants are contesting the potential cap rate. As the board can see on our summary sheet, we separated the residential and retail components. The appellants also provided separate 2024 INEs for both components. We can see that why our apartment NOI used in 2025 valuation, which is column D, is below the apartment income reported by the appellants in 2024, which is column E. Our retail NOI, on the other hand, used in 2025 valuation exceeds the retail NOI reported by the appellants. So these are column D2 versus column E1. So there are some variances in NOIs when we look at each component separately. However, our combined NOI used in 2025 valuation, which is $6,559,076, is about $70,000 below the combined NOI reported by the appellants in 2024. I still went ahead and I included the test columns, column F and column F1, just to see what would happen if we were to increase the apartment NOI and decrease the retail NOI. I was very conservative with my projections, and I probably should have tested much higher NOI for retail now that I'm looking at it. But on the other hand, if I did that, our tested value would be even higher. That wouldn't do any justice to the appellants. The 8,000 square foot retail space that is occupied by the Arlington Free Clinic was not used in our valuation, as again, this is a non-income producing space. Again, our cap rate study, we utilized third quarter 2024 commercial real estate publications, also Arlington County sales that occurred in 2024 produced the unloaded cap rate from 4% to 5.8%. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, people? No questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and go with your 1 minute wrap up, Ms. Shuttlesworth.
Thank you. Again, we tested both components separately. Our combined tested NOI was still below the combined 2024 NOI reported by the appellants, and our tested value exceeded the 2025 assessment. I asked the board to confirm the subject's 2025 assessment of 108,320,200. While it is true that the property sold for 105 million in 2023, it is clear that the market rents in Arlington County have increased since. Additionally, just comparing the 2022 NOI of 6.3 million to the appellant's reported 2024 NOI of 6.6 million demonstrates an upward trend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harmon, you want to take a minute, please?
Yes, thank you. So the 2022 NOI prior years to that is confidential to the prior owner. We unfortunately don't have access to that, so we can't espouse on that. I don't know if that should be shared here by the county. That is, my understanding to be confidential with the prior owner. However, looking at this property, the cap rate on the assessment is 4.867% unloaded. If you look at these surveys that the county states in their case, they relied on PwC, RERC, and CBRE, the best properties in those surveys, they have a consensus at 5%. So the county's valued this at 4.867%, below what the consensus of the county's support has stated is the low end. Essentially, this property is per the county better than any property that those surveys tried to capture. Granted, this property is not metro accessible. Granted, this property has experienced cap rate increases since it's sold, yet it's somehow better than all those surveys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's an old board now. Where do we stand on this one?
Did we go back to the sales price last year?
Yes.
I think we did, right? Okay. I haven't seen any issues with anything.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, even if you capped it, what the appellant is reporting, the current cap rate, it's even higher than that. It's 109,700,000. So I'm okay with the current assessment of units.
Agree.
Anyone else want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we confirm the county's 2025 assessment at 108,320,200.
I have a motion by Mr. Mendes, and we got a second.
I'll
Mr.
second.
Yates.
Oh.
Okay, all in favor? So it is 4-0. The assessment is being confirmed with 108,320,200. All right, and we'll go to the last case. RPC 22014-131 at 5100 8th Road South. Mr. Harmon, you want to start with your amens, please?
Yes, thank you. So this is the Fields of Arlington. It's a 199 unit apartment building. 189 of those units are committed affordable. That's 95% of this property is committed affordable units. And I just want to start by saying this is now the fourth case today where we see the county has imputed an NOI that is right at the actual 2024 NOI. This is what we argue on appeal. We argue that that's what the law requires. So I really appreciate the county has consistently and clearly demonstrated that they are assessing these properties at the 2024 reported NOI. I hope this continues going forward. With that being said, we don't contest the income. We don't contest the expenses. The issue, again, like the others, is the cap rate. So here, the assessment imputes a cap rate of 6.67% loaded. So 6.67% loaded. You back out the tax rate of 1.033%. You back out the replacement reserves at 0.2%. You get to an unloaded cap rate of 5.434%. I'm sure you all know where I'm going with this. Based on those surveys that the county cites as support for their cap rates, where their cap rates came from, why their cap rates are in accordance with generally accepted appraisal practice. This is their source data. Those surveys all say the minimum cap rate for the best properties is 5%. This one is 95% committed affordable. It's aging. It was built in 1960. It's, it's down at Columbia Pike in Carlin Springs, kind of that neighborhood. It's not metro accessible. They've assessed it at 5.43%, just 43 basis points above. Now, some of that, the difference in value is captured by the income. That's correct. However, the riskiness with these properties is not. That's where the cap rate comes in. Adjustments to cap rate are required. The county acknowledges this. Otherwise, why wouldn't the county just apply one cap rate to all multifamily properties and say differences will be captured in the income? It's because they know that generally accepted appraisal practice requires consideration for the unique aspects of different properties. The county applies an effective age adjustment to properties. The county applies a metro proximity adjustment to properties. The county applies a nominal change for committed affordable status. These changes to the cap rates are required by the market, required by generally accepted appraisal practice. It's not enough to just say it'll be captured in the income. If it were, we could just have one cap rate for all multifamily properties. We know from sales in the market that that is not the case. Properties that are less well situated, properties that are 95% committed affordable, such as the subject, properties that are built in 1960s, such as the subject, have higher cap rates. That's just a fact. So objectively looking at this property, knowing it is a 1960 build in a non-prime location without access to metro, where within the range of these surveys, which the surveys that the county cited have a low end of loaded cap rates at 6.233% and a high loaded cap rate of 9.033%, should this property fall? Well, the low end, again, is for the newest position properties, most amenitized properties in prime locations with access to metro. The assessment imputes a cap rate just 43 basis points above these trophy assets. Those trophy assets, those are going to be your J. Soul apartments in Ballston. Those are going to be the Central Place apartments in Roslyn. Those beautiful glass building skyscrapers with, we've inspected some of those and they're beautiful and they have all the amenities. They have the location. Those are going to be the low end of the cap rate range. We've inspected this property as well. This is not comparable to those. The cap rate assumed by the assessment values it as if it's similar to those properties. This is clearly not the case. Even making the county's own stated adjustments to account for age, which is a 40 basis point increase, metro proximity, which is a 25 basis point increase, and the committed affordable status, which is a 75 basis point increase. We see that the consensus of the three surveys cited by the county, that's PwC, RERC, and CBRE, goes from a 6.233%. So that's the consensus low of those surveys. Then we build it up with that effective age adjustment of the counties, with the metro proximity adjustment of the counties, and the counties of committed affordable adjustment. We get to a 7.633% cap rate. That's using the low end of those surveys, which are the best properties, those Roslyn skyscrapers, and just building it up with the county's own stated adjustments for effective age, metro proximity, and committed affordable status. That gets us to a 7.633% loaded cap rate. The current assessment's at a 6.67. This is just, it's illogical. It just doesn't line up. How can you have a property like this that is valued the same. It uses the same cap rate as those brand new institutional grade properties. A cap rate increase is also supported, as I've stated in other cases, by market sales. As we've discussed, 2121 Westmoreland sold at a close to 7% cap rate. This property is being valued by a cap rate that's lower than that newer building. It was built in 22, and that property was metro accessible. As such, we respectfully request the board reduce the assessment by increasing the cap rate to reflect the data the county has purportedly relied on to derive its cap rate for this property. Let's look into this. Let's look at what's required by law, what's required by generally accepted appraisal practice. You'll find that this is below what any rational assessment would come up with. And just as a final note, we did provide to all of our appeals an addendum. It's our board book. We did make this available in digital and hard copy. I hope that you all got this. This is essential to our appeals. We've provided hard copies. Those are in Drea's office. I believe 3 of you are in the office today. That'll be in the same building. Pick one up before you leave today. I'll be referencing these frequently in future cases, and I think it would just help smooth everything along if we all have the same information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? No, nothing. Well, I don't think we have anything else to add. Do you have anything else to add, Ms. Shellsworth? No? All right. I think your microphone is up, Ms. Shellsworth.
Oh, I apologize for that. No, I just asked, based on our testing, I asked the board to confirm the 2025 assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harmon, you want to add anything else? You have a minute.
Yes, thank you. We didn't hear, again, we're not contesting income expenses. We're just discussing the cap rate, and the county hasn't really supported their cap rate. They provided the support. They compared loaded cap rates that the county used to unloaded cap rates from the surveys and say we're within the range. Well, that's not apples to apples. We're going to encounter this case after case after case. Make the adjustment to make it an apples to apples comparison, and you'll see that it's not in the range. It's definitely not in the appropriate portion of the range. This is a much riskier asset. It's going to require more intense capital spend going forward due to the age and the type of property it is. We just respectfully request that the board review the county's support for the cap rate and impute a market cap rate appropriate for this property. Thank you. Thank you.
And yes, just wanted to make a quick note to Mr. Harmon. Yeah, we all received a copy of the book that you mentioned in a digital form, and to anybody that wanted to get it printed, we do have. Thank you. All right, we'll go just among the board. Let's see where we go. I'll go ahead and start. I don't really see. The property has been valued about the same range since 2022 rents. Of course, this is more of a committed affordable property, except for 10 units. But the income is there, the value is there. So I don't really see where we can just make change based on maybe making a change in the cap rate, which I don't think we have enough to do based on the equalization part.
And I would agree with you also, Mr. Panoranda, and actually the assessment's going down from last year. So this is a very stable, just looking at the historical income from it, I just don't see where there's any room to change.
Right.
I would agree.
Okay. All right. Do we have any motion to go with this case?
Motion to confirm the assessment at $37,702,600.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Mr. Mendez, all in favor? All right. So the vote is 4-0 to confirm the assessment at $37,702,600. Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Thank you, Ms. Shellsworth.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. And I think that completes the agenda for today. Anything else to add from anybody? No?
No.
Well, thanks everybody for attending the meeting today. We'll see you next week on Tuesday virtually.
Thank you.
So the meeting is being adjourned at 10:16 a.m. today. Thank you.
Mary, I have one item for the board when you have a second.
Okay, wait, we still got